Hi crochet friends, this is Alicia from Malinka Yarncraft. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I design crochet garments, accessories, and home decor, and I also share crochet tips and stitch tutorials. Make sure to check out my other videos. In today's tutorial, we're going to be making the bubble heart pillow or pillowcase. This beautiful decorative pillow features an easy textured 3D stitch pattern that looks like the bubble stitch but is so much easier and faster to make, and an adorable scalloped edge. Crochet it in pink or red for Valentine's Day, or any colors that match your home decor all year round. I will post as much info as I can in the description box below. However, you can also find this pattern in a printable PDF version in my Etsy and Ravelry shops. Enjoy and let me know what you think in the comments. For today's project, we're going to be using a medium worsted weight yarn. The yarn that I am using specifically is the Big Twist value from Joann's. This is a 100% acrylic yarn, weight 4. The colors that I'm using are white and Varsity Red. You can substitute this for any brand that is a similar weight, so medium worsted weight 4. If you would like, you can also substitute this with cotton or wool, so any natural type yarns. If you do that, I recommend that you do work a gauge sample, a gauge swatch, and block it first, just to make sure that your gauge actually meets the gauge in the pattern, which it will be in the description box below. I'm also going to put the exact amounts that you're going to need of each color in the description box below as well. And as far as colors, you can of course use any colors you'd like, as long as there are 2 contrasting colors so that your heart really pops out of the pattern. I'm going to be using a 6mm hook, or you can use any hook needed to meet the gauge. We're going to need some scissors, a tapestry needle or yarn needle, a measuring tape, and I'm going to need a bunch of stitch markers, or we can also use safety pins. We will need a few of these to pin our panels together as well. The last thing we're going to need is going to be an 18 by 18 inches pillow insert. So this one is from Amazon, and you can find these in regular stores. This is a pretty standard size, so it's 18 inches by 18 inches square. You may actually have an older decorative pillow like this laying around, so you can reuse the insert from that, or you can sew your own. So in centimeters, that is going to be approximately 46 by 46 centimeters. If you want to make a stuffed version of this pillow, you will just need the polyfill, so you'll just need the stuffing that we normally use for crochet toys and amigurumis. Alright, so let's get started. In this tutorial, I'm going to make a smaller sample just to show you the stitch pattern, and for those of you who've never done color changes, I'll go over that as well real quick, but I will give you the full stitch count as well. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. Oops. And then I'm going to chain 22. And if you have the written pattern, this is basically how many chains you're going to work for the gauge swatch. I do recommend that you do a gauge swatch as well, especially if you're going to use a different yarn and hook, because we do want to make sure that our pillowcase will actually fit our pillow insert. Okay, so we're going to chain 22, and if you're starting to work on the actual pattern already, you're going to chain 60. Alright, so starting on row 1, we're going to work a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. So 1, 2, right there. So yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. And in this row, we're going to work single crochets all the way across. So 1 single crochet in every chain, starting with a second chain from the hook. So at the end of this row, you will have 21 single crochets if you're working the swatch, and you will have 59 single crochets if you're working on your front or back panel at this point. So pay attention to the stitch count, because this is going to be your stitch count going forward. So we have the same stitch count in every row going forward. This is also going to be the right side of our work. So this row here where we did our first row of single crochets is going to be the right side of our work. So you can mark it with a stitch marker if you wish, just for reference. So we're going to have different patterns on the front and the back side when we work our front panel. Okay, so starting on row 2, this is where our stitch pattern is going to start. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. This chain is not going to count as a single crochet. So what that means is if we don't count that as a stitch, then we need to start working with the very first stitch here. So we're going to work a single crochet in this very first stitch. Okay. Next, we're going to work a treble crochet. So for a treble crochet, we want to yarn over twice, and this is in US terms. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. Okay. Next, we're going to work 1 single crochet. So you're going to fold this treble in half and push it to the back of your current row. So fold it in half and push it to the back, and then go into the next stitch and work a single crochet. And this is what kind of forms those bubbles. So it's a very easy way to make bubbles without working those complicated bubble stitches that use up a lot of yarn, and this will create a really nice 3D pattern for us as well. So, and now we're just going to repeat the same pattern of working 1 treble crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 treble, 1 single, all the way until the end of the row. So let's do one more together. We're going to yarn over twice, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 once, twice, 3 times. Next, we're going to fold that treble to the back of our current row and go into the next stitch and work a single crochet. And here's our second bubble. Right, so let's go ahead and work this entire row, and I'll meet you back here once we are at the end here. Okay, so at the end of the row here, I'm going to work my last single crochet, and row 2 is finished. So now you can see this pattern forming with our cute little bubbles. All right, so to start on row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to work a single crochet into every single stitch in this row. And this is going to be the same row every time the right side of your work is facing you. Okay, so we're going to work a single crochet in the first stitch, in the second stitch, and so on, so into every single stitch. You might have to really turn your work around so you can really see the stitches and where you need to work into. There we go, and we're working a row of single crochets all the way across. Okay, so for our next row, we're going to work a row of single treble again, but we're going to alternate between repeats of row 2 and 4 so that our treble crochets do not stack on top of each other. Instead, we want them to alternate. So in our next row, we want the trebles to be in between 2 from the row below, from row 2. Okay, so we want them in between. In order to do so, we're going to start with 2 single crochets instead of 1, so that we can push the pattern out a little bit. Okay, so row 4, we're going to start with chain 1 and turn, we're going to work 2 single crochets in this row to start. Okay, so we start with 2 single crochets, and then we start working our pattern of working 1 treble and then 1 single. 1 treble, 1 single, and again a treble and a single. So this is what's going to happen when we alternate it like this, and then now our bubbles are arranged in a checkered pattern instead of being stacked. All right, so we're going to go ahead and finish our row here of working 1 treble, 1 single, and the way we started the row with 2 single crochets, we want to finish the row with 2 single crochets as well. I just worked my last treble crochet here, and now I just need 2 single crochets to finish the row. There you go. And sometimes they do get flattened out, and you can always pull them out a little bit, these treble crochets, to make sure they stick out and form these little bubbles. Okay, for the next row, we're going to do a row of single crochets again, because remember, every time the work is facing us, so every time right side is facing us, we have a row of single crochets all the way across. So I'm going to work a row of single crochets. Okay, so from now on we're going to repeat these rows. So on the next row we're going to repeat row 2, and then we're going to work a row of single crochets, and we're going to repeat row 4 and work single crochets, and then 2 single crochets, 4 single crochets, and so on. So this is the pattern for the entire front panel. If you're working the gauge swatch, I recommend you stay with one color and keep going until you have approximately 26 rows total, so that you can take the measurements and calculate the gauge in your gauge swatch. However, I'm going to move on and show you how to do the color changes for when you do need to start changing your colors. If you're working the actual pattern, that starts on row 10. So you're repeating the same pattern throughout. However, starting at row 10, we're going to start changing colors. So let's go into that. So if you purchase the pattern, it comes with a color chart like this. The color chart is going to be in pink, so you can print it out in grayscale like I did, or you can print it out in color so you can really see where the red goes. The chart has numbers here below. These numbers are for your stitches, and these ones are for the rows. So basically you will know exactly how many rows and stitches you have in each color. Okay, so when you're working with a color chart, you can see immediately that you have a total of 9 rows worked in just white. And then on row 10 is where we're going to start adding red right there. Okay, so in row 10, we have only 1 stitch. So the 30th stitch right here is going to be red. And then as we come back, we're going to have to increase to 3 stitches in red, and so on. I recommend that you make separate yarn balls for every color change. So basically here we can use the same yarn ball for all white. Once we start the split here between the colors, basically I recommend that you have a separate ball of white for this side of your work and another one for this side of your work. And then once we reach this section here where we have 3 sections of white, you want to have a 3rd ball of white yarn. This is just going to make things easier, otherwise you have to carry the yarn over, and because of the big contrast between the yarn colors, you would actually be able to see the red behind the white here, and then you'll over here, and then you'll be able to see the white behind the red here. Plus you will use you'll use up a lot more yarn if you carry over your yarn back and forth like that. So we want to drop our white here and pick up the red, and start a new ball of white over here. Where we have only one stitch of red, we can just carry it over for one stitch. It's not going to be noticeable, but once we start with 3 stitches here, we definitely want a new ball of white. Okay, so basically go ahead and work all of the 9 rows in white in the pattern, and then once you reach row 10, we're going to work 29 stitches in white, and then on the 30th stitch right there, I'm going to change color. So on my little sample here, that's going to be right in the middle, so my 12th stitch. So I'm going to work my pattern and treble, single until I reach stitch number 12. On your case, if you're working on the front panel, it's going to be stitch number 30. Okay, so I worked 10 stitches, so they actually have the 11th one here is my middle stitch, so that's the one that needs to be red, and on the front panel that's the 30th stitch. So once you work 29 stitches in white, now we need to change color. If you are familiar with color changes and you have your own method, so just go ahead and just work your pattern. You can skip this part. This is really for those who have never done color changes and just want to see how I do it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my red here. So the best way to change colors is basically right before you finish the stitch that precedes the one that needs to be in the new color. So the last stitch in the old color, we want it to be finished with the new color. Okay, so my last stitch here is a single crochet. So before I finish it, I'm going to add a new color. So on the last yarn over pull through of the last stitch in the old color. So I'm going to start my single crochet. So yarn over, pull up a loop. And now instead of finishing it off with the same yarn, I'm going to bring in my new yarn color. Now the yarn ends, make sure you always bring them to the back side of your work, to the wrong side. So you fold this one in here, bring your new yarn color, same thing, make sure the end is on the wrong side of your work, and just finish off that single crochet with the new color. Now you just want to tug on it a little bit to tighten it up, and we don't need to make any knots or anything here. And now the stitch number 30 is going to be in our new color. So we're going to work a treble crochet with this new color right here. Okay, so in our very first color change, we only have one stitch in red. So now we need to switch back to white. Again, we want to do that on the last pass through of the previous color. So the last stitch of the previous color and the last yarn over pull through, okay? So basically I have to go one step back in this treble crochet. So before my last yarn over pull through right here, and switch back to my white. And since we only have one stitch in red here, I can use the same yarn ball here, and then I'm going to add a new one on my next row. So I'm going to grab the same yarn, make sure your ends are on the back here, and bring it in here and pull through with white. Okay, so now I can go ahead and do my next stitch in white. The rest of the row here is white as well, so it's color A. So now we have 29 stitches. On my gauge sample here, it's only 10 stitches that we're going to work in color A. And the way you know if you did the right number, you did it right with color changes, is to really count them from the top. So when you finish your row, you want to count your stitches then from the top here where you can really see the V's. A lot of times it will be hard to count, especially if you're working with single crochets, if you count from the front and make sure that you did your color changes correctly. So you want to make sure that once you finish your row, you count the stitches from the top here. And you can see clearly there's one here in red. So I'm going to finish this row real quick and then we're going to move on to the next row. Okay, so the next row is a row of single crochets. And as you can see in the chart, we are making color changes on every single row. So it doesn't matter what stitch pattern we're doing, if it's the single treble or if it's just a row of single crochets, we're going to work our color changes in every single row. So now we're coming back this way. We're on row 11 here on our front panel, and we're going this way now. So we're going to reach this area here. So in row 11 we have 28 stitches in color A. Then we're going to have 3 stitches in color B, and then 28 again in color A. So for me here, that's going to be 8, 9. Okay, and now I need to have 3 stitches. So over these 3, I need to have red. So I'm going to continue. So again, since this is the first stitch where I need to have red, that means that I have to switch my colors now on the last stitch in the previous color. So go one step back, bring in your red. Okay, so now we're on the front side of our work. So if you turn right there, you can see your other color. So you're going to bring this over. Right, you grab that, bring it over, and finish that stitch in this new color. Now what you want to do here is make sure that this space here is not too tight. So we want this to be a little bit loose so that the entire pattern doesn't shrink. Okay, so we pull this yarn over here, one stitch over, and now we're going to work our first stitch in the red. So we're going to insert our hook into this next stitch, and we want to make sure that we work over this little bar here that formed when we pulled over our new color. Okay, so you want to make sure that you work over it right there. Okay, so I have a total of 3 stitches. This is 1, 2, and 3. So now we have to go back to white, and this is where we want to go ahead and start a new ball of white. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in another ball of white. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a new ball of white, and again, we want to change the color on the last pass through. So you go on your last red stitch, you're going to go back one step and finish this stitch with your color A, so the white right there. Tug on it a little bit so it's not so loose. Make sure that all the ends are in the back. And now we're going to continue our stitches with this new ball of white. Also make sure you don't miss any stitches here. Again, in your front panel, you're going to have 59 stitches in every single row, so you should have the same stitch count every time. Okay, so again, we're not counting from the front. Sometimes it's easy to see, sometimes not. But if you look at the top of your row, you should count the stitches up here, and you can see that we have perfect amount. We have 3 stitches in red. So we did everything correctly. Okay, so we're going to continue, and we can do one more together, and then you can continue the pattern on your own on this front panel. Okay, so on this next row here, and I do recommend that you mark off. I personally do them with X's around the color changes right there. So I finished these two color changes, so I marked them off with X's, but you can also just put a check mark next to your rows that you finish as well. So whichever way you prefer, just to mark them off and keep track of the row you're on. Okay, so the next row, we're going to have 5 of color B, 5 stitches of color B in the middle here. So basically we're going to have 27 stitches coming up to it, and then we're going to have 5 stitches in red. So you're going to work all of those stitches. So I'm coming up to the spot where I need to change my colors again. So I need one more, and I know I have 3 here, and then in this row that I'm working right now, I'm going to have 5. So I'm going to start in the one right before those 3. Okay, so we're going to continue our pattern, so treble, single. So I have a treble crochet here, and now I'm not going to finish it because I know that I have to change my color now right before I start my stitches in red. So I'm going to bring this back here. I'm going to grab my red right here, bring it over. Again, you want to make sure that you don't tighten it up too much, so go ahead and finish that stitch. And this is a treble, so we don't want to tighten up too much. It has to pop out on the back here. So stretch this out enough so that it doesn't actually curl your pattern in or tighten it up like that. Okay, so then the next stitch is going to be worked in red, and we want to work over this bar so we can hide it and secure it. There we go. Single crochet. There we go. So now I'm going to continue my pattern. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, I know this is the last stitch that I need to work in this color, so I'm not going to finish this single crochet with the red. I'm going to bring it back here, bring it back and over, and grab my other ball of white here that I dropped in the row below, and bring it over and finish that stitch with the white, and then continue my pattern with the white color. Again, if you want to make sure that you have the right number of stitches, you want to count them from the top. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in red, so I did it correctly. Then you can also do a stitch count at the end as well, just to make sure that you didn't miss anything in between color changes here. Sometimes that can happen. We get confused because of the different colors and you may skip stitches. So definitely make sure you count your stitches at the end of the row and make sure you didn't skip anything. Here we go, and I hope this is helpful as far as color changes. So you're just going to continue working on your front panel up this way. So as I mentioned previously, once you reach this side here, so the top of the heart here where you bring in white again, you will have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different yarn bowls. So you'll have white, red, white, red, white. Okay, so then after you're done with row 53, then you can drop and cut all the reds and the additional whites, and whichever ball of white yarn you used over here to go this way, you're going to go up this way with this, with that same ball of white, and then you can cut off the rest of them. Okay, so go ahead and work on your front panel, finish this up. All the rows, all the color changes will be in the description box below, and if you would like the chart, you can go ahead and click on the links in the description to purchase the pattern that contains this chart. So if you are working the swatch, which I did recommend you do, you want to finish all 26 rows of your swatch with just the white color, right? Just for the swatch sample. So the stitch count and the rows that I gave you should end up with an approximately 6 by 6 inches gauge swatch or 15 by 15 centimeters. So I do recommend you finish off all 26 rows. Some people tend to tighten their tension the higher up they go. Others actually loosen their tension the higher up they go. So you would need at least 6 inches to really get accurate gauge measurement. So once you have about 6 inches in height, you can go ahead and flip it over to the back side and find a 4-inch square in the middle of your swatch. So we don't want to measure stitches that are on the edges or at the bottom or the top, so we want 4 inches in the middle, one way and the other way, so width and height. So we're going to find that 4-inch square in the middle, and then we're going to count our stitches and our rows and compare it to the gauge given in the pattern. So if you have the written pattern, it will be on there. Otherwise, I will have it in the description box below as well. After we complete our front panel, we're going to move on to the back panels. And if you're making the stuffed version, you will have only one back panel. So I'm not going to go over the instructions for the back panel because this is really just single crochet. So basically, we're going to chain the same number of chains for our back panel. So we're going to chain 60. Then in the first row, we're going to work 1 single crochet in every chain, starting with the second chain from the hook. And then we're going to have single crochets in every single row. So the back panels are just rows of single crochets. Please keep in mind that the gauge for the single crochet rows, as far as height goes, is going to be different. So we're going to need more rows than we did on the front panel. Again, if you're doing one panel, basically you're going to keep working single crochet rows until you reach the same height. So until you have 18 inches in height, so that you have the same basically height as you have on your front panel. Now if you're working the pillowcase, we're going to need 2 separate back panels. So we have the top panel here that is 8 inches in height, and then I have a bottom panel here that is 12 inches in height. So you're going to work your rows until you reach 12 inches for the bottom back panel, and you're going to work single crochet rows until you reach 8 inches for the top back panel. If you add those two together, you're obviously going to have 20 inches, not 18, and that is to have that gap here, so overlap, so that when you stuff your pillow case with a insert, these are going to lift up a bit, so you want to have that additional room there so that it doesn't pop out. So your pillow insert doesn't pop out of your pillowcase. So for me, that ended up being a total of 35 rows on the top panel and 51 rows on the bottom panel. But again, you want to have enough height, so you want to look for the measurement more so than the row numbers. If your pillow insert is extra fluffy, you might want to add another inch or 2 to the top panel here, because if it's going to be super stuffed up, it's going to really open up here, and you'll be able to see the insert. Okay, so just watch out for that, and go ahead and finish your back panels, and then we're going to move on to assembly. After we complete all of our panels, I recommend that you go ahead and weave in all the ends before you proceed to the assembly. So the back side here, where the color changes are. I especially recommend weaving these in so that they don't float around, so you can see the red behind the white. And it's also safer this way because if you decide to wash your pillow or your pillowcase, they're just going to be more secure in there. You can also decide whether or not you want to block your panels. I am using acrylic yarn, and it doesn't change its shape there very much, and I also have the right measurements already, so I am not going to block my panels. But if you're using natural yarn such as cotton or wool, it might be a good idea to block those. Alright, so once you weave in all of your ends, we're going to proceed to assembly. For the assembly, we're going to take our front panel and we're going to face it with the wrong side up. So the back side here, right, the flat side is going to face up. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and arrange the back panels on top of the front panel. The way we're going to do this is that I actually want the very first row, the one that was worked on top of the chains, to be at the bottom. So I'm going to line it up with the bottom. And the way I'm going to know which side is the right side and which one is the back side, basically the very last row of single crochets that we worked on this panel is going to be the right side. So I want them facing me because they look nicer than the back of that row. And so this is how I'm going to know which one is my right side. So the two back sides will face each other, and then we're going to have our right sides facing out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and secure the corners here on this bottom panel to the bottom of the front panel. So you can grab your stitch markers and go ahead and pin the two panels together here in the bottom corners. Once you pin the bottom, you want to make sure that you really flatten this one out nicely, and you want to line up the sides here, flatten it out, and then pin the top corners of this bottom back panel to the front panel right there. We just want them pinned together so that later on they don't move around. So you want to make sure it's on the same level on both sides, pinned to the same row. And just so you know, since the two panels have different gauge when it comes to row height, they will not necessarily line up row by row. So this is why I'm not counting rows. Instead, I'm just making sure that it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to find the right row on the front panel to pin it to. So I'm going to pin it right here. Okay, so obviously if you opted for the one that only has two panels total, so only one back panel, you're going to pin this to the top. So you'll only have these two corners on the bottom and two corners on the top to pin together. Now if you're making this version, the pillowcase that is removable, now we need to add the top back panel. So similarly to the bottom back panel, I want the row that was worked into the chain to be on the end. Okay, so this time it's going to be on the top, not on the bottom. So I want this to be my join here. So we can go ahead and pin these corners together. Okay, and again, the right side of this panel is going to be the same as on the bottom panel. So the stitches, we want them aligned so that the V's are facing us. So this side, and this is our front side. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pin these two corners together. And once you pin the two corners together, you will notice that this one does have an overlap. So this is good. We do want a 2-inch overlap right here, because once we stuff it, we want this to cover the bottom one right there, right? Like a regular pillowcase. Okay, so again, we're going to like flatten it out. We don't want to stretch it out too much. We just flatten it out, and we're going to pin it right there. And we can go ahead and pin through all three of them. We are going to join all 3 of them together at the same time, so we can go ahead and pin all 3 here. Okay, then I'm going to make sure that I go onto the same row and pin the other side as well. Okay, so I have 2, 4, 6, 8 rows here in between this top and here, so I'm going to do the same here. And once I do this one, I can go ahead and move the stitch marker too, so that it pins all 3 of them together. Right now it's only connecting these 2, so I can go ahead and connect all 3. So just redo it real quick so that all 3 of them are secured together. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, just to make sure that all 3 of them are pinned together. There we go. So once we're done pinning all of the panels together, right there, okay, we have a 2-inch overlap. Okay, so now before we start joining, we want to flip over the entire thing, so all of the panels all together, so that the heart is facing us. We're going to be joining the panels with the heart side facing us, so the front of the pillow is going to be facing us. And we're going to start working on the edging. So we're going to join all of the panels together all the way around, and then we're going to work in edging. Okay, so to start joining our panels, we're going to bring our yarn and join it at the top right corner, and we want to work through both panels at the same time. So I'm going to find the last stitch here on this panel right here, and the last stitch on this panel, and join my yarn here. You can use any joining method you prefer. Okay, I'm going to knot my yarn right away. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with chain 1, and then we're going to work 3 single crochets into this corner. So we need to increase on the corners once we go around. So we're going to need 3 stitches in this corner. So I'm going to go into the same place and work 1 single crochet, and this is going to be my first stitch here. We can go ahead and mark this so we don't lose it later on once we join our round. And now I need 2 more. So I'm going to work 2 more single crochets in this corner. Okay, so when we join the top here, our stitches are pretty clear, so we can really see the stitches on this panel, and then we can see the chains on this panel. So we're just going to go ahead and join both panels with single crochets all the way across the top here. So you're going to go through both panels, stitch by stitch and chain by chain, and join with single crochets. Okay, then go into the next one through both panels and join with single crochets. Okay, so we're going to work single crochets all the way across the top of these 2 panels. So I've worked across the top here, and I'm reaching the very last stitch in this row here. So in this corner here, we also want to make 3 single crochets. So here go 1, then add 2 more and to the same spot. Here we go. Okay, so once you finish the top, so we did have 59 stitches in our panels, and then we added 2 more into one corner and then into the other corner, so we should have a total of 63 stitches at this point. Once we complete the top, we're going to continue joining our panels on the side. So on the side here, we're going to work single crochets as well, and we're going to work them into the side of our rows. And we want to spread them out evenly and work one single crochet per row. So you're going to have to pay attention to your rows. So I have one row here. So every row that has the bubbles here, so the bubbles formed from the treble crochets, that's one row, and then in between the two rows of those trebles you have another row here, the row of single crochets. So this is how you can keep track. Since we did already work our corner into that top row, we don't need another stitch here. So we're going to start in the next row, and again, hold your panels together, and remember that your rows will not match exactly on the front and the back panels. The gauge was slightly different. We did need more rows to reach the desired height on the back panels because they're just single crochets, and we had fewer rows on the front panel because we did have these rows with treble crochets in them. So you're going to use the front panel as your guide for the rows. So we're going to work our single crochets into the sides, and at the rate of one single crochet per row of the front panel, you should have a total of 61 stitches, 61 single crochets on the side. So we did have 63 rows, but we did work, so we worked this top into the top row, so we're going to work the bottom into the bottom row, right? So we will have 61 more single crochets in between the two corners. Right, so we're just going to go ahead and use whichever loops on the side here and try to use our rows as a guide on how to spread our single crochet stitches here and work through both panels. And then remember that once you reach the area where your two back panels overlap, you will have to work through all three of them. So we want to join all three of these together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and work the side here, and I do recommend that you always use two loops from the side. It just creates a better coverage so you don't have a gap here. So go ahead and work this side, and I'll meet you back here once we reach the corner. Okay, so I've worked 61 single crochets on the side here, so after the corner, and you can see where we worked all three panels together. We have this nice flap here now. Okay, so now that we reached the corner, we're going to turn, and I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and I'm going to start working on the bottom, joining the bottom of the two panels. So the same thing we did on the other side, we're going to need to create a corner here by working 3 single crochets. So I'm going to find the last or first stitch on this one here, and we do have chain stitches here at the bottom, so these were the starting chains for our panels. So we're going to find that first one here, probably this one, and then the first one on the other one, in the bottom panel right there, and work a single crochet, and then work 2 more single crochets into the same stitch. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and work single crochet stitches and join the bottom of these 2 panels. And again, these are chain stitches, so this should be easier now, so you can go stitch by stitch here and work them together. And you should also have 59 stitches plus 2 for this corner, the additional 2 that we worked on this corner, and then we are going to stop here and work 3 single crochets in this corner as well. Okay, so I have 58 plus 2, 60, so then I need my 59th in here in the very last stitch. right there. Okay, and again we're going to work 3 single crochets into this corner. Okay, so again 59 plus 2 additional ones on this side and 2 additional ones on this side, so you have 63 total. And now we're going to finish the last side. So again we're going to be working on the sides of the rows, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side. The only thing here is if you are making the pattern of the stuffed pillow, so you only have one back panel, make sure you stop at some point here halfway through and you stuff your pillow, because you will close it off completely here, so you will need to stop somewhere where you still have room to go ahead and stuff your pillow. If you're making this version here with the 2 back panels, so our pillowcase, then we're just going to do the same thing we did on the other side and join all of our panels and make sure we join these 3 together again. You can also stop here and make sure you can flip it over and just double check that the side is on the same level as this side. So if you have to repin here, so mine are matching, so I don't have to repin this, but it would be a good idea if you're doing the same thing to stop here and double check and repin these panels if needed. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this last side now. And as a reminder, we are working 1 stitch per row of the front panel, and we're going to need to work 61 stitches here until we reach our stitch marker for the very first stitch in this round. Okay, so I'm finished with this side here, and I have 61 single crochets as well, and now I just have to join my round. So I do have my stitch marker here that marks my first stitch of the round, and on the side of it we have that chain, so that chain one we did in the beginning before we worked our first single crochet, and this is where we're going to go ahead and join our round. So I'm going to insert my hook into that chain and slip stitch all the way through to join the round. And now I can go ahead and cut and fasten off. Here we go. Okay, and now we're ready to start on the edging for our pillow, and I'm going to do the edging with the red color. So we're going to make a scalloped edge, and I'm going to use the red that I used on the heart. You can use any color you like. You can use a pink, or you can just continue working with the white yarn if you'd like. Okay, after we fasten off and cut, we are going to start the next round of edging, and we're going to bring in our color B. So this is going to be my red yarn here. So we're going to attach this yarn into the top right corner. So basically we want to find that group of 3 single crochets where we did that corner, and we want to start in the middle. So we want to start in the second of the 3 single crochets that we have in this corner here. This was my first one. I don't need the stitch marker anymore. I'm going to remove it. I'm going to attach my red yarn into this corner here. So you can do any method you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off right away. All right, so we're going to start with chain 3. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, and this chain is going to count as a double crochet. Next, we're going to double crochet 6 more times into the same corner. So we're going to be doing 7 double crochets in every corner. And since this one counts as one, we're going to work 6 more into the same corner. So 1, 2. Okay, so I did 6 double crochets plus chain 3, which also counts as double crochet, so I have 7 double crochets in this corner. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches and work 1 single crochet into the next stitch. Then we're going to skip 2 stitches and work 6 double crochets into the next one. So skip 2 and work 6 double crochets into this next stitch. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then we're going to skip 2 stitches and work 1 single crochet into the next one. And from here on, we're going to repeat this pattern. We're going to skip 2 stitches and work 6 double crochets into the next one. Skip 2, single crochet, skip 2, 6 double, skip 2, 1 single. So we're going to repeat this until the end of the top here, until we reach the next corner, and we are going to have to skip 2 stitches here as well, and then work 7 double crochets into that next corner. Okay, so once we reach this corner here, we're going to skip 2 stitches and find that middle of the 3 single crochets, so right there, and we're going to work 7 double crochets into this corner. Okay, so 1, 2, again we're going to work 7 double crochets into every corner, and then the rest of the edging, it's going to be groups of 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 more. All right, now we're going to do the side here. And on the side here, in the beginning, we're going to skip 1 stitch. So we're not skipping 2 here, we're going to skip 1. And we're doing this so that our stitch count works out, so that this pattern kind of lines up with the stitch count that we have here. So we're going to skip 1 here, and we're going to continue our pattern. So skip 1 stitch and work 1 single crochet. Okay. And then we're going to continue the same way we worked up top here. So we're going to skip 2 and work 6 double crochets, skip 2, work 1 single, skip 2, work 6 double, skip 2, work 1 single. And we're going to work that up until we reach our next corner. Right, and so once we get close to the corner, we're going to skip 1 stitch again and work 7 double crochets into the corner. Okay, so skip 1 and work 7 double crochets into the second of the 3 single crochets that we worked in the previous round into that corner. 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now we're going to repeat the same thing we did at the top. So here again, we're going to skip 2 and work 1 single crochet. So skip 2 and 1 single crochet, skip 2, 6 double crochets, skip 2, 1 single crochet, and so on until you reach this corner. And then on the sides, on the side here, after you skip 2 here and work your 7 double crochets in the corner, on this side you're going to skip 1 and then work a single crochet. So basically we have a different stitch count on when you compare the top and the bottom to the sides. So on the top and the bottom we're going to skip 2 right before the corners, like before and after the corner. On the sides, we're skipping 1 after the corner and skipping 1 before the corner. Okay, then again we have the bottom here, we're skipping 2 after the corner, skipping 2 before the corner, and then once we do this last side, we're going to skip 1 after the corner, then skip 2 everywhere else, And then here in the end, I will meet you back here and we can finish this off together. Okay, so once we reach our last corner here, first corner basically, we're going to skip the last stitch and join our round. Depending on how you did your join here in the previous round, it may look like you have 2 stitches. Either way, we want to skip whatever's left over here and then join our round. And to join our round, we're going to go into the top of that chain 3. So the top of that, the third of the 3 chains. Insert our hook into that, and we're going to join with a slip stitch into that one. Here we go. And now we can go ahead and fasten off and cut. And our edging is finished. So now we want to go ahead and weave in these yarn ends that we have left over from our edging. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and weave in these ends, and then we can go ahead and stuff our pillowcase with our pillow insert. Okay, so now that our pillowcase is finished, we can go ahead and stuff it with that pillow insert. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to start with the bottom side because it is a little bit larger. So just go ahead and stuff it all the way to that corner, to both corners here. Go. And then we can do the top part. And fluff it up. Okay, and once your pillowcase is stuffed, you can see that this is really helpful to have this overlap so that your pillow insert doesn't pop out. And if you really want to, you can always add a button or 2 here. It can look very cute, and it will also keep this top flap in place. And here is our finished pillow